very excited to talk to you today about this topic. Next to kids, clothes, and golf, this is my favorite topic. I have invested over 10 years of my life into this. Not to mention, I've always kind of had a keen intuition that has helped me to be able to break down people's body language, but most of all, due to my son's mental abilities to be able to process spoken word, body language, and micro expressions became speech for me and my household. I have turned to so many different techniques and options to help me understand for the emotional well-being of my family and myself. And I think anyone who is really going to tune into any type of signals will see that ultimately this is a huge gift. This was a huge gift that was given to me by my son, but when others can see the overwhelming positivity that being able to communicate with somebody that is unable to communicate just by reading their facial expressions or their tonality or their body language is something that I could never replace ever. So I'm going to teach you everything I know about body language and micro expressions. I have an NLP background, and that's a neuro-linguistic programmer. So I have a deep thrill for the mind and our neurology and how our mind sends signals to what information that we interpret and then put back out into the world. So we as a culture have been studying body language since 1872. The infamous Charles Darwin, that we all know, wrote an amazing book called The Expression of Emotion in Man and Animals. Paul Ekman, who, of course, I think if anybody has seen the show Lie to Me, that kind of blew up micro expressions. We've always been fascinated by the mind, and I don't think that that's going to go away. I find that our brains are so fascinating. There is a supercomputer in here with the ability to process so much information at once. Most of our movements are done unconsciously, which means it's an automatic response that you don't really have control over because you don't even know you're aware that you're doing it. With awareness and practice, you actually can change those responses that you put out there. I kind of just want to talk about typical nonverbal communication that we decode daily with every interaction that happens. With that comes facial expressions, body movements and posture, people's gestures, their eye contact, their touch, the space in between one another, their voice, their tonality. So when all of this is going on, our brain is actually filtering all of this information and placing it into different sections to actually allow us to see what we're even seeing. The funny part is you don't really know what you're looking at. So for most, it would just seem like an everyday conversation, everyday interaction. Oh, he's kind of off today, or oh, she's kind of off today. But realistically, every movement that we're making when we are having a conversation is definitely telling to what is going on inside the mind, not necessarily what is spoken. Everyone has a baseline that is a natural state that they are in. So dependent on the situation or the conversation that you are in, you will see that baseline change or waver from, of course, its neutral position. So in those moments, that's where lies, shame, happiness, sadness, fear, those things will sneak out. The most important thing to understand, I think, is that there is a list of what we call universal gestures. So these are gestures that in most cultures we find do all of this similarly. One of these is shoulder shrugs. So everyone does them, and you guys typically don't even know that you're doing them. And you open the palm of your hands and turn them upwards. When you are unsure about something, most everyone will go, I don't know. And that's a genuine response in every culture all over the world. There are different languages, there's different cultures, there's different traditions, but this is one thing that is going to stay the same in all of us. So again, if someone doesn't really know, you're going to see their body do that gesture. Even if they don't open their hands fully like this and say, I don't know, you will see a little bit of a change or a flip over, saying that, like you're willing to receive information and you're open because you honestly don't know. Pointing is another one. So everyone around the world uses their finger to point, or as a pointer, to something. So if you asked for directions, most people will be, it's that way. You have to go over there. You come here is another one. So you might, it's universal, and what you're going to see is either one finger saying come here, two finger, a hand waving you over. It's still the same idea. Your fingers and your palm is bent and you are signaling for someone to come over here. Our body language is broke down like this. The gestures, the poses, the movements, the expressions that one uses to communicate in a daily basis works as such. We actually use only 7% verbal communication to one another in a daytime. 38% of that is vocal, so it's intonation, it's your pitch, it's your pauses, it's your tonality in your voice. 55% is nonverbal, and that relates to your body language. So really, if you look at it in a whole, we really think we use a lot of language, but actually it's only 7% of what we're saying. Even linguistically speaking, if you're looking into that 7%, you can break apart that 7% quite easily in the words, the verbs, the adverbs, when you speak to one another in conversation. The expression on a person's face can even help determine if we trust or believe what an individual is saying. So most of us will hear people say something, but it's really not the words coming out of their mouth that we're buying. It's their body expression when they're saying that. You know, people will say, you didn't really mean that. It's like a sorry, sorry. There's a difference between just saying sorry and actually feeling and being sorry. I want to talk about facial gestures and nervousness and tension. What you'll see in these situations is a furrowed brow would be one of them, squinting eyes, lip compression, lips that are tucked into the mouth, a quivering chin, quivering lips. The corners of the mouth will twitch or pull oddly towards your ear very quickly. It's important to keep in mind, though, that body language is not universal. There are only specific gestures that are universal in body language. So several things can impact how someone both uses and interprets body language. Remember, it is imperative to know a baseline or a neutral state in the individual that you are trying to read. If you do not know those states, you're going to be unaware to know when he or she would be changing. So smiles. With true, genuine smiles, the corners of your mouth will be turned up. The eyes will narrow because the wrinkling of the corners and the pushing up of the cheeks. A sincere smile will always generate that. An insincere smile generally does not involve the eyes. So we had said that before. The eyes are actually not a part of this at all. They can happen to respond to discomfort in situations like that, because you'll almost read that that smile is not genuine, something is wrong, there is an issue at hand. A smirk or a partial smile that follows a micro expression of displeasure or contempt can suggest uncertainty, disdain, or dislike. Remember, we are pairing these with that brief micro expression before the brain reads the next motion of business, really. It's all going to start out if it's coming from a genuine place or a place that is, done out of anger or contempt, that smiles will change a little bit in that regard. A smile accompanied by a lasting eye contact between two people, so a long gaze or a head tilt, can suggest attraction between two people. Most often than not, because our eyes are the windows to the soul, a lot of people don't allow us to look in their eyes for a very long period of time before their vision starts to go somewhere else. And that's again because the brain is signaling what's coming next. When you are in that kind of almost attraction phase, when two people lock eyes, the brain stops and it doesn't really compute anything else but that attention right into those eyes, trying to read the next expression. Let's talk about lips. So a compressed or narrowed lip can suggest unease. A quivering lip can suggest fear and sadness. A pursed lip may indicate anger or a disagreement. Again, so a tight lip. An open, slightly parted lip can tend to mean someone is feeling relaxed and at ease. The amount of information our eyes give away when you are speaking with somebody. I, of course, have a neurolinguistics background, so the way I understand how the brain works and the senses that we use. There are certain directions that your eyes will go into when you are accessing information in your own subconscious. Well, again, this is a big computer that stores every event that's ever happened in your life. So when you go and you reflect upon something that you're thinking about or in a conversation, your eyes are directed to different parts of your body. Again, this could be a visual remembering, this could be an audio remembering, this can be an internal talk that you have to yourself, this can be feelings that you're accessing, this can be, again, things that you are making up visually and things that you are making up verbally or auditory, that you've heard. That goes in a lot deeper than what we're doing today, but knowing that background, and this is where I started. So these are great openers to understand how to read body language. And I want to move to the eyes. So the eyes do convey so much information about somebody's mood level or their interaction or what type of feelings that they're trying to access or what they're trying to say and what they're trying to say but not using words. I do believe that the eyes are a window to our soul, and it is, you have to almost be very careful who you look in the eyes and who you want to bare your soul to. For me, I've experienced so many people be so untrue to themselves, and I know they're lying. I know the words that they're saying is not right. I know they don't believe it. I know they've accessed certain parts of their mind and their storage system and their file cabinet that just doesn't tell me the words that are coming out of their mouth is actually what they really truly feel or mean. Let's talk about blinking when it comes to the eyes. So people tend to blink rapidly when they're under some sort of stress, and when they get something in their eye too. I'm not going to say that that's not a reason why. You may have heard that rapid blinking suggests dishonesty, but that isn't always the case. Blinking may speed up when people are working through a difficult problem. They could be more visually based, so they're actually like seeing pictures go through their mind as opposed to words or sounds. So that can be also a processing technique that is happening. They can feel really uncomfortable, and when you feel really uncomfortable, typically you do nervous, twitchy things. Yeah, just focusing on, oh man, my eyes are dry. Your eyes will feel dry and you'll just start to feel uncomfortable and you'll start blinking lots. If you are afraid or worried about something, that is a good indication of people blinking too in situations. When you look further into the eye, pupil dilation says a lot. Your pupils typically dilate when you feel positively towards something or someone else. These feelings are typically romantic feelings. It's not always the case. It can happen in response to arousal of your nervous system too. So you can get dilated pupils when you're angry or afraid as well. You just kind of have to look at the context in which that's in. The reason our pupils do this is because, again, our mind is just this amazing computer. And when we are attracted to something, our pupils dilate because they want to see more of it. They want to get in everything that they possibly can, and it almost consumes their vision. Your eyes tend to follow who you're interested in. So you could walk into a room and there might be 20 people, but the eye is always drawn to the person that you're most interested in. Your eyes, well, and a lot of your body will be facing that way too. So if you talk to somebody whose eyes keep wandering towards like the buffet table or another group, they're probably more interested in eating or going and talking to that other group. Because that's them looking for an exit. We'll also talk about body language in the feet, but you can confirm this by looking lower down at the feet. When somebody's gaze direction is away from the person that's directly speaking to them, they might have just seen something out of their peripheral vision that caught their attention, so they looked, but you can also tell if that's the direction they want to continue in by where their legs are actually facing, because if their foot or their body is pointed that way, that means that is exactly where they want to be. They do not want to be here. A couple things that you would break down in that situation. People also tend to move their eyes down or to one side when they're working through a problem, recalling information or a memory, or thinking about something difficult. That's exactly what I was saying to you earlier. When you start to look at the mapping of body language and what our eye motions are really doing. That is exactly it. You know, when somebody's thinking about something difficult or recalling information or memories, they access their feelings and they access typically internal thoughts. So that can be an audio response or a visual response to those, as well as their feelings or an internal talk. There is also directions that your eyes will go when you are accessing information that is not true and you're making it up on the spot. So that is also an indicator too, that you would have to know advanced body language techniques as well as micro expressions a little bit deeper to uncover that. But it is a good source to know if people are really telling you the truth. So eye blocking. So eye blocking is great because people do it. People end up covering their eyes with their hands when they don't want to see something. So we have eyelids and we could shut them. But realistically, if we really wanted somebody not to see something, we put our hands over a hand, a sheet of paper, a book, or whatever. Closing your eyes briefly, such as a really, really long blink, can also be known as eye blocking, and people just don't want you to look in their eyes and access things. Another really good one for eye blocking is, of course, itching your eyes or rubbing your eyes. My eyes are so itchy, I've got something in my eye. Or squinting. Squinting is a good one too for eye blocking. So just getting into your arms, people often cross their arms when they feel vulnerable, so that they kind of just want to almost secure themselves a bit, or anxious, uninterested, and considering another perspective. You'll see people close off their body language. Interestingly enough, crossed arms can also suggest confidence in people. So a lot of very confident people will cross their arms. I think it's more in context when you want to look at this, is what type of situation that they're in. If you're in a meeting and someone's coming at you, or you're getting in trouble or something like that, you'll probably feel yourself do one of these, because you're probably really vulnerable. So you're just trying to protect yourself, hug yourself, comfort yourself. You do this. Oh, sorry about the chair. You do this automatically. You don't even know that you're doing this. I know for me, I'm a very confident person, so I typically do sit with my arms crossed a lot, and I'm not really vulnerable or anxious in any of those situations. Holding something against your chest, or bringing an arm up to rest on, like on a table or a chair, or putting an arm out to create distance. Someone using one arm to hold another arm behind their back, so you know how you just kind of stand there and hold your arms behind your back. These gestures subconsciously suggest that the person does not feel entirely comfortable with the situation and needs to steady or protect themselves in some way. Now, you can go see great examples of this. You can go watch any president at any given time go give a speech and just pick apart his speech with his body language. Learning a lot of this was just watching people speak. So seeing them take a podium and then watch, people give these, tell a country this is this, and they're shaking their head like no when they're saying it. So they're really just contradicting what's coming out of their mouth. About legs and feet, because I mentioned this before when we were talking about eye contact and where the body wants to be. So the legs and feet can show nervousness and restlessness. People will tap their feet, they'll jiggle their legs, they'll shift from foot to foot because they're uncomfortable. I find that crossed legs can also suggest the unwillingness to hear what somebody has to say, especially when their arms are closed too. If their arms are closed and their legs are closed, you're not getting in. That is a wall. You can see that a mile away. Most of us will close our bodies off because that will indicate that you're done talking. If you are in a conversation, or you're in a meeting, or you're seeing these things go on, it really can affect you, because now you're picking up on this. So you really have to use your intuition in these situations to understand, like, just because Billy across the way moved his foot and it's pointing you does not mean that all of a sudden he likes you and you just picked up on it. You need to start checking out boxes of other areas, watching body language, finding that base, seeing when that baseline changes, who it changes around, how it's changing. I mean, these are really just, I find, fundamentals for life, and just fundamentals if you want to have a really lasting career, and you're in sales and you're interacting with people, you do need to understand just these basic gestures of people. Feet can also reveal a lot of information. Note the direction of somebody's feet and where they face in a conversation. So if feet are pointing away, they feel more likely to leave the conversation than continuing it. If their feet are pointed towards you, that person is likely to enjoy the conversation and keep hoping that it continues. Hands, some people, for the hand talkers out there, many people use gestures to emphasize when they speak. This can have some different benefits. It suggests that we tend to answer someone's question faster if we make hand gestures while they're asking it. It's a weird little study, but it's the truth. The more enthusiastic the gesture, the more excitement someone's likely to feel. Oh my God, right? Or, oh, that's awesome. Just two examples. It's also fairly common for people to gesture towards someone they feel particularly close to, often without realizing. Here are kind of some specific things to watch for. Outreach hands with your palms up may be an unconscious reflection of openness. So I kind of mentioned that before when we talked about the shrug with the I don't know. This does make you open to receive, open to learn, open to communicate. If you find your hands are up, you're open to receive. Clenched fists can suggest obviously anger and frustration. I think we all know this, especially if somebody is trying to suppress an emotion in an instance where maybe they're in a professional instance and they don't want to show their anger. You might notice facial expression remains neutral and relaxed. And again, that's an easy thing to do. We talked about being in control of your facial expressions when you want to, and some of us can do that because you don't want to read anger on your face. The only downfall to that is if you do know micro expressions and body language, you're going to see through you faking that, because you're going to know the genuine sense of what's not tightening, what's not opening. The tonality in the face is completely different for the gesture that they're trying to show. Indistinctively touching the cheek is a signal that someone is considering something carefully, or it has a lot of interest in what you're saying. So people will typically lean forward as well as brace themselves because they're more engaged, they're more interested. Let's talk breathing. I know this is a lot of information, a ton of information that you guys have to filter in here. But your breathing is so important. Your breathing tends to pick up when you're under stress. Stress can be positive or negative. So someone's breathing can quicken or slow down. Excitement, being anxious, nervous, or worried. A deep breath can also indicate relief, anger, fatigue. So the way somebody's breathing, obviously you can breathe really fast, you can breathe really slow, you can breathe really deep, you can breathe from your diaphragm. Most people in meditation will understand what I'm talking about when it actually says when you're breathing from here and in your diaphragm. Most people will breathe here in their lungs, but it's actually here that you're needing to breathe into breathe so that your stomach actually expands and comes back. Most people do not breathe like this because typically they're just under so much stress. Their body is doing a million things. It's just on autopilot. But if you actually take a minute, watch your breathing, understand your breathing, you can really change so much about your body, your tonality. The state that you're in will change dramatically too once you get into a more calm state just by breathing. So slower breaths typically suggest a calm or thoughtfulness. Ordinary breath patterns may not stand out so much to you, but someone's breathing can seem very controlled or precise. This intentional control often happens when we're trying to suppress a strong emotion such as anger. So because we can feel different chemicals firing off in our body as well as our brain, in certain situations we're automatically triggered to do so. When we're around certain people, we suppress that, and we have a system that works for ourselves. It might not be a great system, but there is a system in place to hopefully suppress very strong emotions as anger, and those systems should kick in that situation. So again, you can change a very angry situation to a very calm situation if you just took 5 minutes to breathe. We got to talk about posture too, I think, when it comes to this, and I'm covering everything, guys. So posture, your posture or the way you hold yourself isn't always easy to control, which can make it very hard to read somebody. It can still offer insight, particularly when it differs from how a person usually carries themselves. So some things to look for. You have to know your baseline neutral here, guys. You know, leaning back on a wall or using another support can suggest boredom or distance. Leaning into a conversation, you'll probably see me do this more often than not. I really try to sit up straight for you, is typically suggests interest or excitement. Obviously, I'm excited. Obviously, I'm interested. This is what I love to do. Standing up straight sometimes with your hands on your hip can suggest excitement, eagerness, or confidence. You know, standing straight up with your hands on your side is commonly resting position that will always suggest the willingness to and eagerness to listen to somebody. You know, resting your head on your hand can show somebody that you're interested. When both hands support your head, you know, like this or like this, that can resonate boredom and or fatigue. Tilting of your head or to your body to one side suggests interest and concentration. So it can also indicate attraction depending on the other body language markers that are out there. So obviously if someone is in quite a gaze with you and you guys are locked eyes and someone tilts their head, or when they're talking to you in speech tilts their head and they're making full eye contact with you, their body positioning and their feet are pointed directly at you, it's a pretty good indication. There's one thing on here that is not on here for posture because I think we missed this in legs, but it's kind of under posture. So openness. Remember when we talked about arms kind of crossed, legs crossed? That's not an open position to receive any type of information. It's very distant, very disconnected. It's almost a wall. There is the open leg position. Now, this is a very inviting situation for anybody. So if you are in a conversation with somebody and they are sitting there, number one, with their head tilted, their eyes locked, their pupils dilated, their legs are open, that is somebody that is suggesting a very open connection with somebody. Opening of the legs is almost it's that instinct that we all have because we are animals, and that is look at what I have here, you can see this, I'm interested. So it's kind of our form of peacocking, if you will. So distance and the degree of physical distance a person maintains when you are talking with them can give you clues about their moods and their feelings for you. So keep in mind that many people simply prefer more distance between themselves than others, especially people who don't know you well. You will have a greater gap of distance between you two. On the other hand, there are those close talkers out there, and some people may feel accustomed to less personal space than others, so they may sit or stand very close to you when they interact. This is when you look at previous interactions that you've had before, again, that baseline neutral, and see was this always like this, or is this something new? Is this something changing? It's to be said that, you know, there are very, very specific telling behaviors with distance. You know, somebody who regularly sits or stands very close to you likely enjoys your company. Someone who stands apart or takes a step back likely wants to remain some social distance. So, you know, and obviously now we're 6 feet apart, but physical and emotional distance from you too. So again, if somebody is stepping back from you, they're stepping back away from whatever the conversation may be, and maybe that's their out of just saying, don't want to talk about this. Sitting close enough to touch or lean into in a conversation with a smile, a genuine smile, and a brief touch, that is a good indication of physical attraction. When you're talking to them, it never hurts to ask someone how they feel. If you notice a restless foot or a clenching fist, try pulling them aside and asking them if everything's all right. Body language can very much vary from person to person. If someone's unique body language suddenly seems different, it's a clue that something might be going on beneath the surface. Aiming for some level of eye contact, you don't have to stare or maintain eye contact all the time, but it does help when you do meet someone to gaze and hold that gaze for the better part of the conversation. Plus, you're more likely to pick up on body language when you're directly looking at somebody. Remember to listen. Good communication always involves us listening. Do not get too caught up in trying to just decipher someone's gestures or position that you forgot to actually listen. The whole idea is to trust your intuition, understand what you're seeing, and what I just gave to you today is an immense amount of information. This is just lightly touching the surface of how our brain functions when we are not even thinking about it. Our unconscious and subconscious mind is an amazing, amazing thing.